Well, hello everyone. So it's the 4th of May 2022. It's been a little while, and welcome to another ecosystem session. I have Walter here with me today.
Hello, David.
Hello.
Very nice to be here again.
It's nice to be here with you. It's been 6 months, perhaps.
It could be. Time goes fast.
So I've been hearing rumors of your wonderful work. I was chatting to Eric a few weeks ago, and you're saying, look, this Walter thing's incredible. And I know you've been doing some stuff with Stephen Alexander and I'm sure other people. So it's it's been exciting to hear about like just the snippets. I'm looking forward to seeing the progress, and I really enjoyed our last conversation. So just actually was, sometimes I actually forgot how much I enjoyed it until you logged on and we just sat quietly for a minute. I was like, oh yeah, I feel like no time has passed since that last moment. So, I'm looking forward to seeing where it goes.
Thank you, David, for sharing that. That makes me feel grateful and really welcome. So it's very nice to hear that you are hearing about what's happening now. And it has been an exciting time and a lot of connections, beautiful connections, and it's progressing in a very good direction. So I'm very grateful for this and for being here.
Yeah, super. Okay, well, over to you.
Okay, so this time will be to actually make demonstration of the technology. And let's just go directly there.
Perfect.
I think. I don't know. I will share my screen. If maybe you need to allow me to share my. No, that's good.
It's already allowed.
Okay. Okay. So just very quickly, for maybe people will not have seen the first one. Generative Objects is a meta low-code platform that I've been developing over the last 12, 13 years already. And that I'm in the process of open sourcing and bringing to ecosystems like Holochain, for instance, in order to use the technology to empower people to create decentralized applications. And here we are on the modeling part of generative object Metamodeler, and I will connect. And so I will first demonstrate how Generative Objects works as a regular low-code platform, because low-code is something very very common nowadays. Everybody is wanting to get access to such technologies, and the idea is that for a non-technical user, for business users, how can I create without coding an application? And I will create the first application called demo application. Let's just call it demo application. I will select use the design model. The design model is like the templates, the colors, all the UI look and feel. And I will just save that. And as a very basic application, we will create an application for managing contract and customers. So a basic CRM application. And the way it works with Generative Object, the core meta model, is to define the different entities that our application is composed of. So so it's data modeling brought to the user through the user interface, and with an interface that is usable by business users. And in an application for managing contract and customers, it's pretty easy. We have an entity called customer. And when we define an entity, we define all the properties of this entity. So customer as, and we will keep it very simple, as a name. And that will be enough for the demonstration. Here you see an ID, which is a unique identifier. This is more technical. It's the unique identifier for this for this entity, meaning that every time we save to the database a customer, every customer will have a unique ID, because the name can be several customers can have the same name. And I have the concept of contract. And my contract will have here a title or an object, let's say a title, and a date. So we'll put a field of type date time, the date of the contract. And let's keep it very simple. Of course, there will be much more, but this is just to demonstrate the concept and how it works. And here, I just need for each of the entities to define what is my title field. So the title field is more like which property of the entity I will use as a way to display, for example, a list of contract on the grid to let me have not use the ID that is very technical. And for my customer, it will be the name. Once I've defined all my entities, I need to define how they relate to each other. So here, I have one-to-many relation between customer and contract. So this means that one customer can have many contracts, and one contract is associated to only one customer. And there is much more I can model, like business rules. So here we have like a little language that we can use to define business rules, validation rules, and all. We need to have a more complete application, but we won't go there now. What I will just do here in the administration of my platform, I will say that I want security. So here we can connect to to Active Directory or to other stuff, to Solid. But here I would just want to have application security, which means that the database of users and roles and security related information will be stored on the application database. So this part is taking a bit of time because it's creating a lot of many like system entities and component that we need to manage the security. So here, while it's doing this, so I already talked about database. So here, this current version of Generative Objects is for generating client server web application with a central server for serving the application. So this is classical, classical web applications. And we will see later that how we can actually use Go to create other systems and potentially target the creation of decentralized application, for instance, using Holochain. Okay, so if I go back to my entities, I will see that here I'm not showing the system entity, but if I also show the system entity, I see that it's created a Go user table, a Go group role, so some system elements directly integrated in the model to integrate security. So now what I will do is the same way that we've designed the entities, the data model, which is the core of the application, then we can design forms, pages, navigation, and the whole user interface that goes on top of the data model, and also components for plugging custom server-side functionalities or import-export data to Excel or other systems. So there is a lot of things we do here in the same way. For the demonstration, we have auto-create application functions that it's a quick start. It's really like from the data model we've defined, it will create a basic user interface on top of it. Some kind of a crude application that allows you to navigate data, create data, and all that we need, and having already a first version of the user interface. So now that it's done, if I go to my forms, for example, I will see that I have a form to create a new contract. I have a form to display a contract. So this is the user interface that's created. So I will not go more into details here. I will just generate the application. I will do configure and generate. So here We were on the Metamodeler, and now we go to the meta generator. So this is the generation part, the generator part. The previous one was how we model our application. It's independent from the technology. It's using a language that is the one we've been using through the web interface. And now we go to the generator that holds the generation templates, meaning, okay, from that functional model, how do I generate my application? And the actual engine to generate. So I will connect to that one. And here I can see already the pipeline of generation. So it doesn't only do generation. We see that it do a Git pull. It generates the data, the database here, or the scripts. It creates the data model, the business model, the web application. It pushes all the generated code. It builds the application, deploy the database. Well, it does a bunch of stuff. So this is a full pipeline that is used not only for generating, but for handling the deployment to the server and the configuration of the database and everything. And this is something that can be, we will see later, that we can create our own. So we can change that to actually target Holochain. So I will just generate now. And so it's starting. So that now it's like going through the pipeline of generation. I will here display a bit more information. So it's actually reading the data, the model we've just created for the application, and translate this to running code using the generation templates. And we can see while it's generating that all the file names that are generated here. So it's generally a bunch of files here. And we will see that what it generates is actually human quality code. So it's not just like generated code that no one can use. It's actually a high quality, human-friendly, human quality code that is generated here. So it's almost done. So here it's actually building the application, and it will deploy the application and the database. So now it's deploying the database, and it's done. So now my application is available here. So I just have to click on my button. It has already been deployed. Well, okay, I'm on local machine, so I need to add local host here. Local. Okay, and I have my demo application. I connect. I have by default an admin password that is created. And okay, I am here. I can go to my contracts here. And I will start with my customers. I will create a new customer, David. And I will create a new one, Walter. And I will go to contract, and I will add a new contract for David, first contract. And for this date, for example. And then I can navigate my contract. I can see my customer. I can see the detail of the customer, etc. So I have a basic data management application that's created with no code, straight from scratch. Okay, so do you have any questions up to there? Okay, so this is very basic, but this is to demonstrate the principle of a low-code platform and how all of the low-code platforms you will find on the market basically work with all their specificities. But this is to create basically data management application. This is the focus of low-code platform. How can I create for any domain? It could be finances, e-commerce, education, the industry, or whatever. This is why they say low-code platforms are generic, because you can target different domains.
Yep.
But they're pretty locked into creating data management applications. So the applications that are highly centered on data, and it's about managing data. Plus the local platform, we know them today, are targeting a given technological stack. So it will either, if it's a generation-based engine, it will generate C# code or Java code or whatever in a centralized way, and you cannot really change that. Or for many other platforms, it's a runtime engine that runs, so it doesn't regenerate code, but it interprets the model at runtime and render it. But it's pretty close in the sense that then you depend on a runtime engine. So this is why with generative object we have something different, because there is a meta model approach. As you see, we have the meta model application and the meta generator application, and we separate the two, and we allow the user to create new meta models to create different kind of application other than data management, and new generation models to target any the technology they want to target. What I want to show you is now the idea and the focus will be to show you how the meta model approach and the meta generation approach works. First, I want to show you very quickly the last application we've done with generative objects, which is the application we did for Catherine and Stephen from Health Commons, to give an idea of beyond just a very simple application like this, what we can create. So I will go to the demo platform for Foodies Medicine. So this is the application we fully built with generative objects. And I will register. Password. So I will wait for the validation email, which is here. So I will validate my email and log in. Okay, so this is an application used for empowering people to take ownership of their health. And it goes through a series of questions done in the survey mode to interrogate the patient, the participant, to encourage self-reflection towards their health. So here I just have to agree on the conditions. I need to complete my profile. Portugal. Okay, Singapore, we don't care. So we have a few, and so the survey starts now. So is it cancer that I'm having? Let's say yes. And then I go to my condition survey. And here I have a set of questions. So I need to name my cancer. So it's like this one, for example, the stage. I have a few questions here to be answered. I need to name my health risks. So I'm going pretty fast. So, and then I need to, then I move to the next step. So to my diet. So what are the reasons I'm choosing diet as a treatment? So I have to select a few reasons. And also, what are my influencers? And again, a set of questions here. Tac. And then I continue and I explain, I give more details about my condition, where I am in my journey. So I'm being pretty fast, and I'm not going to show the full benefit and value of this application. That would be something Catherine would do. But this is just to show you that as long as we progress in the survey, here we have like the navigation here follows where I am in my survey, and I need to continue to do a certain number of things. And I will just show you here. No. Okay. On the test customer, on the test participant, how it looks like when it's fully filled. So we have radars that are shown here. We have whenever we are rating where we are in our journey, we have a radar map here that is filled, and then there is so much more to go there after. Here we select the resources that helped us in our journey. So this is an application that we did this year for Health Common. This is to the level to which we can go.
Wow.
What I want to show here is that we can definitely see here that this kind of application, yeah.
My mum just wants to use my phone.
Sorry?
My mum's just asking if she could use my phone. Here you go.
Okay.
I mean, this is remarkable, what I'm looking at.
Thank you.
There you go. There you go.
And the thing here is that what I wanted to see, why I wanted also to show this application beyond to really see a real example of what we can build, is that we can see here that this is not a classical data management application. It's not just data management, like I'm managing a list of customers and contracts and do a bunch of stuff. It is a survey-like application with kind of a logic to move from one step to the other, to collect data, to show reporting. So when we start to have this kind of application to be built with a low-code platform, it's possible because we did it with the core Go, the core generative object platform here, but it starts to be more tricky. It starts to be, okay, how can I use this data management low-code platform to create something that's beyond just data management? And it involves the low part of the low-code platform. It's like, okay, I will have to write some code because now I need to see how can I handle like navigating from step to other steps, having it reflecting in the navigation here, collecting data, putting the reporting related to that data. So it becomes pretty, complex to do such things. And yet we did it with generative object and we had to write custom code. And the thing is, it's pretty hard for a business person, for someone who is not technical, to actually use a low-code platform to create such an application because it requires higher level of expertise of how to model data, how to use a low-code platform to create that kind of applications, where what would be more suitable is actually a low-code platform specifically designed for creating survey applications. So it's not about modeling a data model. It's about, oh, I want to do a survey. So I will have 5 chapters. In this chapter, I will have that many screens. In each screen, I have 10 questions. The questions are, and if we manage to create a platform that allows business users to actually design their application exactly where their language and their expertise, then we win. And this is not the case of the local platform the way they exist today. And this is what we can do with generative object here. And for instance, for this first application that we did food is medicine fully with generative object, the plan is now that we have the experience of what it means to create a survey application, is now to create with generative object a low-code platform specifically designed for creating surveys and reintegrate everything we've done custom in this application to be retrofitted in the specific low-code platform. Does that make sense for you?
Yes. Yeah, it does. Yep.
Okay, great. So what we'll do now is actually go and we will do the first step of what it means to create with the meta approach, or what it means to create a low-code platform for creating surveys using Go.
Yep.
And actually do that. So
okay.
Here I will, yes. So here I will connect to another instance I have instantiated of generative object here. So here, where am I? No, that's not normal. So bear with me. Yeah, because I've done tests also. So yeah, I was on an instance that was already used. Okay, so now I will create a new application that I will call Survey Modeler 2. I will say 2 because I have a 1 on my machine. And here, instead of creating application type application, I will say, hey, I don't want to create an application here. I want to create actually a modular generator. I want to create a local platform that is called Survey Modeler 2. I will still use the design here, and I will save that. So now I'm actually saying, now I'm creating a local platform.
Yep.
I'm checking something on my local drive. Okay, should be okay. Okay, and still the same thing. We are still using Go.
Yep.
As a local platform. And this meta model, so yeah, there is something I haven't shared yet. I don't know if I want to share now or after. It's the fact that generative objects, the meta approach also means that generative objects is modeled with itself and generated by itself.
Okay, so I'm feeling, Walter.
Yes.
I'm wondering whether we do a couple of questions, pause here, and then maybe jump back on tomorrow. Like, well, we'll check in on like timing tomorrow, Friday, and then record a second half. Because I think I'm just thinking like, so basically what we've just seen is, I think that's what you're describing, is a really well-built low-code platform. But what you're about to show me is a builder of low-code platforms.
Exactly.
And then you're going to show me how the builder of low-code platforms could build low-code Holochain platforms.
Yes.
And I think I just want to give enough space to have that breathe.
Yes.
I don't know if that sounds okay to you.
Yes, that sounds okay to me, yes.
Yeah, because what I've just seen, I just want to choose it, is what I've just seen is essentially like actually, let me just, I want to make sure I've got this right. So the first half is essentially really tightly coupled around data intensive applications.
Yes.
Right? So,
which is the case of the vast majority of local platforms we see on the market.
Yeah, exactly. Yes. Yep. And a lot of web applications, probably like the majority of web application experiences. But then you went into the platform with Catherine and Stephen, where you're building a survey experience, and there wasn't necessarily like a low code survey generation tool with that complexity.
To create this application with Catherine and Stephen, I just use Go as a local platform for data-driven applications.
Yep.
And writing all the custom code on top of it to go beyond data management applications.
Yeah, exactly. And now we're about to look at like how to make a platform out of that custom work, correct?
Yes, it's like this work is just an example that the next step for us with Buddhist medicine is to actually now allow people like Catherine to create new surveys.
Yep.
And they won't be able to do that with Go because it's too technical.
Yep.
So it's like, so let's create a local platform for these target users who knows about surveys but don't know about software.
Yep.
So create a new language that they can use to express what they need, and having the local generation engine working for them to generate what the actual application.
Yep.
Yes, exactly.
Wow. Okay. So I guess so in between our last conversation, you've essentially built this platform, right? Because I think what I saw was this has advanced significantly since we last talked, the platform.
Which part?
I guess, well, oh no, do you know what? We didn't demonstrate the platform, did we, last time?
No, we didn't.
Okay. So of course it's advanced. Okay.
Yes.
So what are the shifts since we last talked? Like what are the changes that you've put in place, and what's different between now and then?
I finalized the meta-low-code approach, which means how we can actually use generative object to create low-code as a low-code platform builder.
Yeah.
So I've completed that bit, and now it's available.
Yep.
And I've talked to Guillaume and to Eric, and I've presentation and got some feedback and see the potential and to actually use that for Holochain, and with the plan to actually now build a first local platform for Holochain.
Yep.
So that when we regenerate these applications, they could be regenerated on top of Holochain instead of a centralized application.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay, amazing. Well, I'm going to pause there.
Yes.
And close part one. Is there anything you want to say?
No, I think this is a pretty wrapped up piece where it's more about presenting at this point the audience or the Holochain audience will not necessarily see, okay, how does this fit Holochain? It's more about introduction to local platform, very on a very small example. Okay, so let's start. So yesterday we just saw the basic use of generative objects as a classical low-code platform.
Yep.
So now the idea is to see how generative object is in fact a low-code builder, a low-code platform builder.
Yep.
And how all that works. So I will share my screen and start directly. So what I want to show you first is on Go itself, or how Go is built and how Go is a meta approach in the sense that it's self-modeled and generated. This will set the tone to actually then create our own local platform as a demonstration.
Yep.
So here I'm using generative objects and I'm opening the generative object application.
Yep.
So actually what you see here is the model of generative object itself. So when I'm building generative object and when I improve generative object, adding features and everything, I'm using generative object itself. Mm-hmm. So you remember that in Go, the first layer is the modeling of the data, of the content. What are the concept, the entities we're managing?
Yep.
And here you see that on Go, we have 273 concepts. So yep. This is how big generative object is to describe everything you need to describe to generate a data-centric application.
Yep.
So for example, if I look for business entity here is well, there are many things. Entity here is actually the concept that is used to model what we actually see inside the modeler itself.
Yep.
So for example, here I see a display name. Display name is this. I see entity fields. So the entity fields are those actually. So it's pretty like inception based, So it's very. I will try to not get lost myself. But here, everything you see in this user interface is actually described in this user interface. And here I am in this user interface describing an entity. And here I actually see all the fields that are actually displayed there. So yep. It's the chicken and egg, no? It's like yep. a model with myself.
Yep.
And that would be the same for everything. So if I go to the presentation element, the navigation, for example, Here I will see, for example, business model. If I say I look for everything that's under business model, for example, here I will see all entity fields, business group, entities, entity relation. This is what is here, actually. So we are like seeing ourselves inside ourselves here.
Yeah.
And if I want to improve, and let's say that for modeling an entity, for example, I need an extra field. Let's say I want to say that this entity, this concept, is actually an entry for that zoom in Holochain.
Yep.
I would add here an entity. I would create a new entity called zoom, zone. And I would create a relation to say that the zone can be composed of many entities.
Yep.
I will model the forms to actually enter that kind of information. I would go back to application here, and I would hit generate.
Yep.
And after having it generate and regenerated, if I refresh that page, here is it. Here it is. I can already create zooms, link zooms to entities, and all that stuff. This is as easy as this.
Yep.
And then there is extra stuff to work, and we'll see after. It's then what do I do with this meta model information? Because here it's about, this is a local platform for modeling models, for creating meta models.
Yep.
Then there will be extra work to say, okay, now that I have this extra information that my user can store when they create a new application, what do I do with it? So I will create generation template or update the generation template I have to actually generate things that are specific to what I've just added.
Yep.
This is basically the how it works. And by the way, I will just show you something that I did yesterday because it is pretty important about modeling the user interface. Here I have something called design models.
Yep.
And here are all the HTML elements.
Yep.
For example, master form, here, for example, these are different layouts. So a three-column master form layout is actually a markup. So where I define here three zone, left zone, left zone, middle zone, right zone, and form field zone is where data will be injected when we generate. So we can create models here of how we want the user interface to look, and we can then target different layouts and elements when we model the user interface. For example, we have here all the fields. So a text field, a subgrid field, a range slider, a code mirror. So this is actually, this is code mirror to have like this code view inside the application.
Yeah.
And this field, this is a generated form also, this master field detail. It is using actually itself, it is using a master code mirror field to actually be displayed this way.
Yep.
And when we model forms, for example, here, if I take, let's go to the business entity form. Here, when I have a form, this is a form for showing a presentation form. So this is actually this form here. This design is for this exact form here.
Yep.
And if I want to add a field to this form, let's say a text field, I would say, this is a hierarchy because the text field is deriving for different other entities. We have hierarchical design possible. And I would say, I want to show the present element business entity. So it's loading. Business entity is virtual, for example, on this tab, on this form zone and the display order. So here I know that since I'm using here the two-column master, I'm on the tab here. If I'm in the tab field, I'm using this layout. So when I add fields, I can exactly say where I would put, where I want this to be generated.
Yep.
So this is how it works to really have flexibility on the user interface.
Yep. Wow.
So this is the Metamodeler. So it's a local platform targeted at modeling data-driven applications. And here, if I open the generation models, I will open the meta generator. So the meta generator is actually all the models we have for generated code from a business model. So if I take the data model, for example, I have a certain number of tasks here. For example, generate data object classes. And this is for all entity of type entity. I will generate a file called name, the name of the entity data object. And this is the template I'm using. So it is a template where between these anchors, it's control code. Outside of the anchor, it's generated code. So here, for example, I will create a file with a namespace. I will take the namespace from my model. I will create a class that will have as a name the active entity that is targeted name data object.
Yep.
So this is how the markup works.
Yep.
And what is interesting is that this meta generator is modeled with generative objects and is generated by itself. Yep. So this is another low-code platform. It is a low-code platform for designing generation pipelines, for designing generation models.
Yep.
And it has been built with generative modeler, Go Metamodeler, and it is generated by itself meta generator. But it is also a low-code platform that was designed with Go and with Go Metamodel and generated with the meta generator. And by the way, if I go to, let's go here. If I want to open the modeler for the meta generator, every time I change context, I need to reconnect. See, this is why I have this screen.
Yep.
Here, this is the actual model for the generator. So if I go to the entities, no, this is not the right one, sorry. Changing context. So if I go to my entities, I see a different kind of task, a task for building application, a task for creating a database, a generation model, generation progress, generation task, git pull task, etc. So here are all the concepts that are used at the user interface so that I could generate the Go generator. And for example, for Holochain, what we would do, we would improve the generator by adding here a task of type, for example, package Holo application.
Yep.
Because this is a specific step for Holochain, so we will create a task performer that is capable of packaging an application.
Yep.
And then, so we can actually create the full pipeline that is very specific to Holochain using generative objects, and then create all the generation topics. So this is for the idea of how everything is working. I don't know if you have any question now. If I move to the next step.
Wild, keep going.
Okay, and sometimes I'm losing myself because it's kind of my mental and insane to just go through the inception thing. So, but we get used to it. So now the idea. I will go to a new instance I've created for us. So it's an empty one. So if you remember, yesterday we created using Go. We created a basic customer app data management application. And also what I was showing is the application we did for Health Command, which is a survey-like application. And explaining that you can use data-centric low-code platform to generate a data management application, but as soon as you want to do something more specific, like survey applications or any kind of other kind of application, using a data management meta model is pretty tricky. It's not very user-friendly. It's really for experts. So what I want to demonstrate here is, okay, let's say we want to generate a bunch of survey kind of applications. And I want business users to be able to, in an easy way, create surveys.
Yep.
So in fact, we're creating a Google form.
Yep.
So how can we have something easy enough for you to use as a no-code, as a matter of fact here, a no-code platform for building surveys. And also one extra thing is like, as since we can really create specific low-code platform, it's much easier to create actual no-code platform because we remove the need for custom code by actually specifying and dedicating the local platform for a given kind of applications. So this is the path from low code to no code. So here I will create an application that I will call Survey Modeler. And here I'm not just, I will specify here that this is not an application I want to create, a final end user application. What I want to create is actually a low code platform. So I want to create a modeler generator for surveys. I choose my design. So the design is linked to what I showed you, the HTML templates and everything. So we can create full new ones. And we just save this one. And I will start my modeling, starting with entities. So here, what we need to see is that we are not we're creating a local platform. So what we describe here is the language we want to create for our business users that want to create surveys. And the language for surveys, we will do it very simple for this version because this is a demo. There will be a concept of chapter because a survey is composed of multiple chapters. So I will create an entity called chapter. And I will give it add a field called title. This is the title of the chapter. And another text field that will be the description. And we keep it very simple. And then the other concept we want to add is questions. A chapter is composed of one-to-many questions. So we create a new entity, a new concept, a new word for our language. So we're creating domain-specific language in a way. So that would be the question. Oh, sorry. And my question will have a field of type text that will be actually the question itself, the text of the question. And it will have a question type text. So it will be an enumerated field that will be called a field called question type. I have not created any enumeration yet. I will create a new one here, an enumeration that will enumerate all the question types. So and I will add the question type of type yes, no. The ID is the internal int number of the enumeration and multiple choice question. Okay, so we create an enumerated type when we have fixed list of values. Or otherwise, we create an entity and we create a link from question to question type as an entity. But here, an enumerated type is enough. By the way, we would do it to be different on the real application. This is for just a simple demo. What we would do instead of creating an enumerated type and put it in question, we would create a base entity called question, and we would create a new entity yes, no question that will derive from question. So that means that we can encapsulate everything that's common to a question, like the question text, and having it specifically done for every single other kind of question, but we will not do this here. What I need to do here is to add a title field for question and for chapter. So this is for the automatic creation of initial interface to know that my list of chapter, I want to have a list with the title used as the description for as the value for the question for the chapter. And the next thing that I need to do is the relation between the two. So there is a one-to-many between chapter and question. So chapter is composed of many questions, and when I'm deleting the chapter, I want to delete all the questions. So when start entity is deleted, also delete an entity. And the chapter is mandatory. By the way, it's creating for me PK-FK connection on the background that can be specific. We can specify it. We can have multiple composite primary keys and everything if we want to go deeper, but that's not necessary here. and relation fields. For example, in my code, when I want to navigate from chapter to question, I will go through a field called question items, and we will be using this in the generation templates. So now I will go to my platform configuration, and I want to just say that I want to activate security. So I want to have an application security provider as before, so we can connect with username, password, and everything.
Yep.
So here is also where we could put other security provider. For instance, I'm creating a security provider for Solid, the Solid from Tim Berners-Lee, because I have created a connector to that to actually connect to the credential of a Solid account.
Yep.
So that's creating a bit of time creating things in the background. And what it's doing here, by the way, what it's doing, it's like it's using the API because everything is beyond API. So instead of using this user interface, by the way, we could script the creation of models using the APIs.
Yep.
And here it's using the API itself to create a Go user entity, a Go user role, to create forms and everything that is needed to handle security. So we, this is what we're using. And that's that will be a good enough first version for modeling surveys. Well, very simple ones, chapters and questions. And then the idea is that this is not a scaffolding tool. It's a development environment. It means that it goes, well, we can generate, have a production version. We can then have new version, put custom code on top of it and regenerate without using the custom code, upgrading the model, adding many stuff. And we have projects on the corporate world running for years now, where they're still using this process. So this is actually very well working. So I've auto-created the first version of the user interface to have a way to easily create chapters and questions. And that can be definitely changed, but we have already, if I go to the pages, I already have a page for creating a page for listing all the chapters, a page for the detail of a chapter, etc., and navigation. So I have different navigation items. So I've already a user interface that's created for me. So I will generate my application now.
Yep.
So we'll move from the Metamodeler to the meta generator. So now I'm in the meta generator, and I will show more detail here. And now it's running a full generation pipeline.
Yep.
So we'll see here the code and the class is being generated. Also, I'm on the local machine here, but it's all working hosted. We host on Microsoft Azure. So when we use the hosted version of Generative Object, what it does, it's generated code and pushing it to Git. So as a developer on my machine, I pull the code. I can add my custom low code where on the extension point and push again the code to Git, so that the next time the platform generates, it will first pull my changes, integrate them in its code, and generate on top and redeploy the application.
Yep.
So we have like a seamless environment process here. So now it's generating test classes, it's building the application. So it's not just generation, it's the full pipeline and any tasks we need to do for actually processing everything we need. And now it's deploying the application. And it will create the generator database and etc. So that's done. So I can open my application.
Yeah.
I'm on local, so I just need to add local host here. I will connect to my survey modeler. So this is my local platform.
Yep.
Since it's a local platform here, I need to create the first page where I land is, okay, what is your application name? So my application name will, okay, I'm the business user now. I want to create a survey. So I will create the first survey that is called my survey, my first survey. But that's not enough now because we haven't, you see that we have defined the data model, how we want to model a survey, but we haven't say, hey, what do we want to generate from that data model? So before the user can move beyond, we need to change to work on the generation models. So here I'm opening the instance of meta generator that has been created for my local platform. And for now, I have no generation model, so I need to create a new generation model. And the name will be survey model generation models. The namespace, I will put survey modeler dot generation models. Okay. And now I open this generation model and I need to add tasks. And I can have stud models. So we've seen on the Metamodeler for complex application, we have generation model for the database generation, the data generation model for the front end, the generation model for the business layer, and while we can organize in multiple pieces that are actually mapping to the technical architecture we're building. So here we'll create the task of type T4 template generation. T4 is the technology we're using for the templating engine. Yep. And we could integrate any other one. So here we'll say, I want to create a task for generating my chapter. So generate chapters. The template name will be chapter.tt, execution order 1. And here I'm saying if I want to generate just one application level file or an application based on entities. So I will select on entities, and here I will say for all my chapters, so I will see all my data model is here. So I want to run that template for all the single chapters I have on my on the business user and user application. Is that clear here?
Yep.
Yeah. So and the file name format will be chapter. Let's say we will, and here between brackets we can say what field of the entity we want to use to integrate in the file name. So it will be chapter, the title of the chapter .file, for example. And we want to generate that in the chapters folder. And I will add another T4 generation task for generating question. Questions.tt, execution order 2 for all my questions. And the file name will be question, the text of the question .file. And I want to generate that in the questions folder. Okay. So now, here, as I've explained before, this is a local platform for generated pipelines. So at some point, I need to generate it. Now I'm just creating my model. I say I have one generation model, 2 tasks. This is how I want to model to represent my generation templates. So okay, generate me this. So we change context. So now we are moving from the generator for my survey model to the generator of the meta generator itself. So here it has deployed a bunch of stuff. You see that it has generated the T4 generation templates, project and solution files and everything. All the code is also pushed to Git. We'll see after, or we can then open that with Visual Studio. So now that I've generated, I go back to the generation pipeline for Survey Modeler here. I go back to my generation models, and now I need to create to select the text of to write the templates.
Yep.
The reason I've done the first generation, I was not necessary. It was not necessary to be done. It's just so that it can generate me this border code already.
Yep.
So I have like a clue about how I can work on that template. So here I have a template where this is a control call because it is in this bracket. And I know that when I reach this template, I already have access to the chapter that is being generated in that moment.
Yep.
And I will write my code. I will say, I will just generate a small file. I need to modify first. And I do it here. So I will say, okay, I will generate chapter. Here, I want to integrate, I want to put the chapter title. And now I want to iterate. On all my questions. So for each question in chapter.question item. So you remember here the name of the relation is question item on my model. So this is how I iterate through the questions. Okay, so I will close this, and here I will reopen because I want to have some output text and not control text. And here I will say, okay, my question is, and here I will put the question dot question, and the type of the question is, and I will put the question dot question type.
Yeah.
And that's it for a very simple template. I will do the same for question. So I create a template here, and I would say, okay, my question is question. So we need to integrate IntelliSense here and autocomplete. And the type is question type, I think it was. And the chapter of this question is question dot chapter dot title. Okay, I didn't put the description, but that's fine. And that's it. So now that I have created my my templates. I will regenerate so that you can actually compile everything, build and deploy so that it can be used by the modeler. So I will generate again that one. Changing context, going to the meta generator for Go. And that's done. And now we are ready to go. If I go to my local platform. So now the local platform is fully ready for business users. So everything we've done here is not for business users. It is for the technical guys, because it's more technical work, who are actually building new local platform. And now I can say to my business user, okay, here is your survey modeler. You can go. It's really easy to use. Just try. So we already created first project called my first survey. I will go to chapters, and I will say I want to add chapter 1. Description is first chapter. Anyway, we haven't used in the generation template the description. I will create another chapter. Second one. And if I open my chapter, I will create a new question here called question 1 of type yes, no. And I will create a new question 2 of type multiple choice. So we see here that we moved from pretty complex modeler for data-driven application to a very simple one.
Yep.
That's really talking the language of the end user.
Yep.
So now I go to generation here, and I just say, hey, generate me my survey.
Yep.
So if I do configure and generate, I will see. So I set in context here. Okay, this is my pipeline. You remember the one for generative object application was quite deep. Here we have just created 2 tasks, only 1 model, so I can select what I want to generate. I will generate everything. So it's generating chapters and questions. And here we are. So I should be able to open the file here, but there is something not working at the moment. So I will show you on my drive. Yep. So it's on my local drive, but it will be on GitHub otherwise. If I go to projects, generation. So survey modeler is the code that has been generated for the modeler itself. And my first survey is here. So if I go to chapters, chapter 1, I have my file. And here we are.
Yep.
And you might wonder, hey, Walter, that's good, but wow, that's so much work then, because this is not an application you generated, it's just 2 files with the chapter and the title. So how do I do a full application? The answer is that we would reuse everything that's on the core generative objects platform, because now instead of just generating this file, we can upgrade the reuse all the building blocks for user interface, for storing database, or in the future in Holo. And we have already all the building blocks for building scalable professional applications. What we do is like we create new local platform, but with the added bonus of we're not starting from scratch, and not even for generation template. We can build on top of all the building blocks that we already have.
Yep,
so this is the magic. It's like everything is connected to everything. And what I want to show you last to finish, because we didn't do it before, is like give you an idea of how looks the generated code. So Survey Modeler is the survey modeler with just the Meta low-code platform. So if I open the solution here, and this is all fully generated in like a few minutes, what we did. So we have the data layer. So on my data object, I have my chapter data object, for example, and we can see that this is professional human quality code that is generated. We have the business layer with the component server, various components that are generated for actually plugging to the generator. And we have the wall, we'll go a bit, the service layer is back to expose APIs. So these are all the API endpoints for the application. And on the web layer, we have here, for example, we find again in JavaScript this time, our data objects here, but the JavaScript version. And we have, for instance, all the UI part is here in views, partial views, chapter. If I go, for example, on the chapter form view, this is the HTML that has been generated from the design model and everything that is here. So this is to this level of the depth and quality that we can generate code. And you could imagine in the future that definitely the web application layer, it's reusable for Holochain application, because it's all the user interface and it's connecting through APIs to the backend, meaning that what needs to be done is connected to Holochain, so that instead of connected to centralized APIs, it would connect to the Holochain controller APIs and actually connect that way to the Holochain infrastructure.
It's pretty cool.
And the last one I want to show you is the generation model. When I said to you, hey, we also generate the generation model, it's also another project. So instead of working on the templates on the browser, which works for simple templates, here we have actually the generation templates are here. So here I have a full development environment where I can add extra libraries if I want, not only to have simple code here, but also core libraries I have for different kind of stuff and everything. So this is where the generation models are, and they're also pushed to Git. And as an example, if I go to generative object and open, I will open. Let's open the full application here. And this is the generated code for generative object itself. And you will see that, hey, it just looks similar because this is also a generated application. So we have the data layer and everything. And so also the added value of using this low code is that all the application you will build will have the same infrastructure and the way of working and everything, which make it much easier to move from one application to another, share development resources and everything. And the generation model are here. So here I see, if I go to data, for example, these are all my data model for the data layer of generative object applications. So we have the data object template here, and we have the data providers here. There is a solid data provider here. So we could imagine having a Holo data provider here. So everything is ready to actually improve that to go beyond and integrate in the technology. So this is how it's all packaged and bootstrapped, and
Wow. Wow. Actually, Eric Bear was just, Bear, I'm going to call you out because we're recording. But like Eric was asking me, like just came over to ask me a simple question. And I was like, my response was this, Walter's here. I was like, can't think.
Hey.
But oh my God. I can't, Bear, Walter's got me in some kind of like crazy recursive loop with his like generative application builder. So I'll I don't know. I can't think. I'll tell you when I'm finished. I'll like, yeah, wow.
I would tell you something, to be honest. It's like, I'm getting lost myself.
Yeah, I can. How are you even functioning?
And I'm also mind blown every time I see it. It's like, oh, that's beautiful. That's beautiful. And this is this idea of this being organic. This is how nature works.
Yeah.
The chicken and egg, it's like, where did it start? It's like
exactly
how it can be self-generative. This is why it's called generative objects, because it's like self-generative. And it took me more than a year to close the first loop.
Yeah.
Because at the beginning, well, where do I start? So I had to do a lot of like very complicated stuff to bootstrap myself. But now that it's done, it's really like flowing. And well, it's like more than 12 years of work. It has been, I started this in 2009. At some point, we were 8 people in the team. And just recently, 3 years ago, I let go of all my team because I wanted to get out of the corporate world and really bring that open source and connect to people like you, like Holochain, like where this fits in creating a world I want to see.
Yep.
So this is why we're connecting now. It's like, hey, Holochain is amazing infrastructure for actually doing that, decentralizing our ecosystem and everything. So I want to bring that Metamodeler platform to actually accelerate that. That will be my gift and my contribution to something bigger.
Yep.
And
amazing. Okay. Well, I'm gonna like lie down. Well, thank you so much. So we kind of started. It's interesting because you've done some stuff with Stephen and Catherine, and a little bit like Guillaume was playing around with this, and we had that no code exploration little session. So it may be something. Yes. I'm going to pause the recording. Thank you so much, and then
thank you, David.
It's just amazing. And
thank
then
you so much.
What I would love to do is bring you back with an application that's building like a proof of concept on Holochain.
Yes,
with
exactly.
Generative objects.
So that would be.
Let's chat, let's find one, and let's then play. And then that'll be in a way like part 3 plus, because it's like part 3 of generative objects plus like part 1 or 0 or whatever of this new thing. And then we can see how it ties together, because I think like it's blow people's minds even more.
Thank you. And I want to share, David, that I'm really grateful for you and for the whole ecosystem work, because I've done the presentation to Eric, to DM, to yourself, and this is the first time in 12 years that I feel actually seen, and that people start seeing what it is about. It's not just a local platform. There is much more beyond. And that feels so good to say, hey, I was in a good path. I was not connected to the right people yet, but now I can feel, okay, finally, the value is seen. So now it can move forward. This is the idea. So thank you so much for seeing that and acknowledging that. Thank you.
Amazing.